Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're heading north, way up Lake Superior's beautiful North Shore, to talk about a real Minnesota landmark, Split Rock Lighthouse.
That's right. It's such an iconic spot.
Absolutely. So if you've maybe thought about checking it out, or you're just curious about its whole story, well, you're in the right place.
We've looked at historical articles, visitor info from places like Visit Duluth and the North Shore Visitor Site.
Even dug into a Reddit chat about Duluth tips, and of course checked with the Minnesota Historical Society. Lots of good stuff.
Yeah, a real mix of sources.
So our mission for this deep dive, give you a quick but hopefully really engaging look at Split Rock. Its history, what makes it cool, some interesting facts, basically everything you'd want to know if you're thinking of visiting.
And it really starts with that setting, doesn't it? I mean, perched way up on a 130-foot cliff, looking out over Lake Superior.
Which could get seriously stormy. It's just this powerful image, really burned into Minnesota's identity. Thousands of people visit every year.
It's more than just a pretty picture, though. It represents a direct answer to, well, real danger on the lake. It's about ingenuity, resilience.
Right. Understanding how a tragedy basically led to this beacon and what it means for us now.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's dive in. What kicked things off? What made Split Rock so necessary?
It really comes down to one specific event, that monster storm back in November 1905.
1905, okay.
Yeah, it was just ferocious. Ripped across the lake, damaged or sank something like 30 ships.
30? Wow.
Yeah, and a lot of those belonged to U.S. Steel. And here's the kicker. They were carrying iron ore, and a huge chunk of it wasn't insured.
Oof. So a massive economic hit on top of the tragedy.
Definitely. It really hammered home just how dangerous Lake Superior shipping was. I mean, it was a busy corridor, vital for industry, but the weather. Totally unpredictable, often severe. It was always a risk.
A serious wake-up call then. So out of that need, Split Rock Lighthouse is conceived. Tell us about the actual construction. How did it come together, and how remote was it initially?
Well, they built it pretty quickly, actually, between 1909 and 1910.
Just a year?
Roughly, yeah. And interestingly, the designer, Ralph Russell Tinkham, this was his first lighthouse design. He later became chief engineer for the whole U.S. Lighthouse Service.
No kidding. Start strong.
Seems like it. But the really striking thing is how isolated it was. For almost 15 years, the only way to get there was by boat, by water.
15 years. Just think about that. The keepers, their families.
Exactly. Total commitment, living way out there, completely dependent on the lake for supplies, for any connection to the outside world. It really makes you appreciate their dedication.
Hard to even imagine that today.
Yeah.
So what changed? How did it finally get connected?
The big game changer was the Lake Superior International Highway. It was finished in 1925.
Ah, the highway. Route 61 now, right?
That's the one. It finally created a land route connecting Duluth up towards Canada. And suddenly, Split Rock wasn't this remote outpost anymore. You could reach it by car.
And that must have made a huge difference in terms of visitors.
Oh, massive. It's pretty amazing, actually. By the 1930s, just a few years after the road opened, Split Rock became the most visited lighthouse in the entire United States.
The most visited. Wow. From total isolation to a national sensation.
Yeah, it really captured people's imaginations.
So what about the lighthouse itself? The structure, the light? What made it so effective, so significant?
Well, physically, it's quite striking. It stands 54 feet tall, and it has that very distinctive octagonal shape.
Right, you can picture it.
It's built with a strong riveted steel frame, but it's covered in this nice buff-colored brick. And right at the top, you've got the lantern room steel and glass housing this absolutely magnificent piece of technology.
The lens?
The lens, a third-order Fresnel lens, made in Paris, no less.
Fresnel. Those are the ones with all the intricate prisms that focus the light like crazy.
Exactly. They're incredible feats of optical engineering. And this one was serious hardware. The lens and the rotating mechanism together weighed 6.5 tons.
6.5 tons.
Yep. Heavy stuff. And it had this complex clock weight system, like a grandfather clock, but on a massive scale that rotated the whole assembly.
Yeah, the light swept around.
Every 20 seconds, a powerful beam sweeping across the lake. And that light, it could reach 22 miles out.
22 miles.
With a rating of 220,000 candle power. It was one of the most powerful lights anywhere on the Great Lakes. It definitely got attention.
A real marvel for its time. But it wasn't just the tower standing alone up there, was it? It needed support.
Oh, definitely not. It was basically a small, self-sufficient community. They built a whole complex around the lighthouse tower.
Like what kind of buildings?
While you had 3 separate houses for the lightkeepers, the head keeper and his assistants, and their families. You needed a foghorn building, absolutely critical when visibility dropped.
Right, the foghorn signal.
An oil house to store the fuel for the lamp, 3 storage barns for various supplies, a pump house for water, even a tramway system.
A tramway, like a little railway.
Yeah, with its own engine house, to haul supplies up that really steep cliff from the lake level. Plus a derrick for lifting heavier things, a boathouse, a pier down by the water. The whole setup.
A mini village, almost, dedicated to keeping that light going.
Pretty much, yeah. Built out of pure necessity.
But, like with many lighthouses, technology eventually caught up, didn't it? The needs started to fade.
That's right. As newer navigation tech came along, radar, GPS, all that stuff, many traditional lighthouses became, well, less essential. Split Rock officially stopped operating as an active lighthouse in 1969.
69. Okay, but thankfully that wasn't the end of its story.
No, luckily not. Its historical significance was recognized.
So how was it saved? How did it get preserved so we can still see it today?
Well, the state of Minnesota really stepped up. They saw its value. In 1971, the state got the property.
Just 2 years after it closed.
Exactly. And then they passed the responsibility for its care over to the Minnesota Historical Society.
Ah, MNHS. They do great work.
They really do. They undertook this major restoration project, aiming to bring Split Rock back to how it looked and functioned in the early 1920s.
The 20s. So back when the highway was just opening up.
Right around that key period. So visitors today can get a real sense of that era. And this dedication to preservation paid off in 2011. Split Rock was officially named a National Historic Landmark.
Fantastic. Which is great news for anyone thinking about visiting now. So if you make the trip up the shore today, what can you actually see and do there?
Oh, there's quite a bit. The Visitor Center is really the place to start. They have an introductory film.
Is that any good?
Yeah, it's really well done. Uses original footage, first-person accounts. It brings the human side of the story to life, the people who work there.
Nice. Sets the stage.
Definitely. And the exhibits in the center fill in the background, the shipping industry on the lake, the shipwrecks like the ones from 1905 that made the lighthouse necessary. It gives you that crucial context.
Okay, so you get the background, then you head out to the actual site.
Exactly. You can tour the restored lighthouse tower itself, climb the stairs, see the lantern room.
Can you see the actual Fresnel lens?
You can see the lens, yeah. It's still there, which is amazing.
Ah.
You can also explore the fog signal building, the oil house, and one of the keeper's homes, which is fully restored.
Ah, the keeper's house. That must be fascinating.
It really is. It's set up to look like it did in the 1920s, reflecting that time when access was still mostly by water, just before the highway really changed things.
So you see how they lived before it got easier.
Yeah, you get a sense of the initial challenges, maybe limitations on family visits early on because it was so remote. Then you see how the highway allowed families to live there year-round. They've got personal items, photos. It feels very real.
And they also talk about the Edmund Fitzgerald there, right?
Yeah.
Even though that wreck wasn't technically in Minnesota waters.
They do. It's such a significant Great Lakes story, and it serves as this really powerful reminder of the lake's dangers, even in more modern times.
And they still light the beacon for that.
Every year, on November 10th, the anniversary of the sinking, they light the beacon as a memorial to the lost crew. It's a very moving event. And of course, Gordon Lightfoot's song. Everyone knows that.
Yeah, haunting song. So stepping inside that keeper's house gives you a glimpse. But what was life actually like for the keepers? You hear keeper and my picture one guy.
Right. But it was more than that. It was a demanding 204/7 job. The head keeper and his assistants were responsible for everything. Constant watch-keeping, obviously. Monitoring the weather meticulously.
And fixing things when they broke, I imagine. Miles from anywhere.
Absolutely. Maintaining and repairing all that complex equipment, the lens, the rotation mechanism, the foghorn, often with limited outside help. Plus, they handled the bookkeeping, all the administrative stuff.
And eventually they became tour guides, too.
Yeah, as it became more popular, especially after the highway, they started sharing the lighthouse's story with visitors. So add that to the list.
Wow, jack of all trades, really. Now, for planning a visit, practically speaking, what are the options? Tickets, tours?
There are a few ways to do it. You can get a basic grounds pass, which lets you into the visitor center and walk around the historic grounds, see the fog signal building from the outside.
Okay.
Then there's general admission. That adds access inside the lighthouse tower itself and into the restored keeper's buildings.
So that's probably what most people want.
I'd say so, yeah, to get the full experience. And they also offer a keeper's tour, which is a more in-depth, private, guided tour, a bit more exclusive.
Good to know. And timing-wise, when is it open?
Generally, the main season for accessing the lighthouse and keeper's buildings is from late April through late October. The keeper's tours might run a bit earlier in the spring, but on a limited schedule.
And that special beacon lighting is always November 10th.
Always November 10th, after dark. Worth checking their website for specific times and details if you want to see that.
Right. Now, important point. There's also Split Rock Lighthouse State Park right next door, but they're separate things, correct?
Yes, that's a really crucial distinction. The state park manages the surrounding natural land, the trails, the camping. The Minnesota Historical Society runs the historic lighthouse site itself. Two different entities.
Got it. So what does the state park offer? You mentioned trails.
Yeah, the park has about 12 miles of hiking trails. Around 3 miles of that runs right along the Lake Superior shore, which is obviously spectacular.
Coastline trails are the best.
They really are. The trails vary, some easy accessible ones, others a bit more moderate. They offer different views of the lighthouse and the rugged shore.
So you can hike and get those great photo ops of the lighthouse from different angles.
Exactly. You've got trails going along cobblestone beaches, winding through the woods nearby. There are also the Merrill logging trails, which actually cross Highway 61 and go into the northern part of the park.
And is it just a summer thing or?
Nope, it's great in winter too. The park grooms trails for multi-use, cross-country skiing, fat biking, snowshoeing, winter hiking. Lots to do year-round if you like the outdoors.
Sounds fantastic. What about staying overnight? Camping?
The state park has camping, yes. They recently opened the Shipwreck Creek Campground, which has sites with electricity.
Oh, modern amenities.
Yeah, though important note, no dump or fill station right in that campground. You might need to plan for that elsewhere. They also have some really nice walk-in and cart-in sites if you want something a bit more rustic and secluded, and even some backpacker sites deeper in the park.
So options for different camping styles. Good to know. Anything else right nearby, nature-wise?
Yeah, very close. Right near the Highway 61 bridge over the Beaver River are the Beaver River Falls.
Oh, I think I've seen pictures.
Probably.
Yeah.
The river tumbles down about 300 feet through a series of cascades before it hits Beaver Bay. There's a wayside rest area right there, easy access, pedestrian walkways with great views. Yeah. Definitely worth a quick stop.
Nice little bonus attraction.
Yeah.
Okay, so Split Rock is the star, but you got the park, the falls, a good cluster of things to see. I also saw something about work being done at the lighthouse site. Improvements.
Yes, that's ongoing. The Historical Society is doing a phased rehabilitation project. Site improvements are planned to continue into spring 2025, I believe.
What's the goal?
Mainly improving accessibility and just generally enhancing the visitor experience. One specific thing they mentioned is replacing the ramp going into the keeper's house with a permanent, accessible, sloped walkway.
Oh, that's great, making it easier for everyone to get in.
Exactly. But yeah, because work might be happening, it's definitely smart, if you're planning a trip soon, to check the official Split Rock Lighthouse website or their social media, get the latest updates on any construction impacts.
Always good advice before heading out. Now, zooming out a bit, what about the surrounding area, further up or down the shore? I remember that Reddit thread had some tips.
Yeah, the locals on Reddit definitely had suggestions. They pointed out Two Harbors isn't far, maybe 45 minutes north of Duluth, they said. And they raved about places like the Rustic Inn for pie.
Can't go wrong with pie on the North Shore.
Right. And Russ Kendall's Smokehouse for smoked fish. Classic North Shore stops.
Okay. What else?
Well, historically speaking, just about a mile north of Split Rock itself, at a spot called Gold Rock Point, you can actually see wreckage.
Wreckage.
From what? The Madeira. It was one of the ships that sank in that same 1905 storm we talked about.
The storm that led to the lighthouse being built?
Exactly. The wreck of the Madeira was one of the catalysts, and apparently you can see parts of it. Someone even posted video online taken from a kayak. Makes you wonder about kayak tours maybe getting you a closer look.
Interesting connection right there. What else did Reddit say?
Mostly just reinforce the idea of exploring the whole shore. Cruise up 61, check out Gooseberry Falls State Park, which is also stunning and very popular. Basically, use Split Rock as an anchor point for a bigger North Shore adventure.
Makes total sense. It really is amazing how much history and natural beauty is packed into that stretch of shoreline.
It truly is. And Split Rock Lighthouse, It just stands there as this powerful symbol, a symbol of the dangers of the lake, the importance of those navigational aids, and the incredible dedication of the keepers who work there.
And today, it gives us this amazing window into the past, plus those absolutely stunning views of the lake right now.
Couldn't say it better. Whether you're into history or you love the outdoors or you just want a really scenic and, frankly, educational trip, Split Rock seems to deliver.
It really does sound compelling.
Yeah, and maybe, when you're standing up there on that cliff looking out at that huge expanse of water, just think for a second about all the ships that sailed past under that light, all the stories Lake Superior holds, right? Some triumphant, some
Right.
tragic.
Makes you wonder what other hidden histories are out there along the coast waiting to be discovered.
Exactly. Maybe a trip to Split Rock is just the start of your own exploration of the North Shore.